Okay, so house officially it is time to start the long-awaited career, sorry, the long-awaited civic clinic session. And today we are actually privileged to have with us a speaker joining us all the way from Switzerland. And she's no other person than Bhhavya. She'll be officially introduced to us by our moderator for today. So as you are here, I'd like you to stay comfortably seated and then get ready as we start the session. So the session is going to be of this format. We're going to have the moderator come in to tell you a bit about today's event and then introduce our speaker today. First of all, reading a profile before she comes on board to speak. And it's going to be quite interactive and going to be very practical. So I wanted to take a good look at the CV while she displays that, and then also let your focus be grossly on the screen. Okay. Fish out every question you need to ask her by the end of the session. We'll have a few minutes for questions, but it's going to be filled with enriching moments for you. So please don't miss out of anything. At this moment, I would like to say that our director, and then also our chief mentor, Dr. Genevieve Duncan Bobi, extends regards to every one of us. She's currently in Abidjan for a program she had been invited to speak at. So she wasn't able to make it to join us today, but she's with us in spirit. Okay, so thank you so much. And I would hand over to our moderator for today, and she is Ruby, our president for the Tarragon Students Network at UPSA. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Raphael. Good day, everyone. Um, so as Raphael said, I'm Ruby Ampofo from UPSA. And so Miss Bhhavya, um, she's a student of international relations, pursuing her master's degree from the Geneva Graduate Institute in Switzerland. She has been passionate about working in the field of diplomacy and is currently building a niche in climate and disaster risk policy. She has closely worked with climate vulnerable nations over the past year and on their climate adaptation program and climate finance. Thank you. So, Miss Bhhavya, um, we are so happy to have you and we're excited to hear from you once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruby, and thank you, Raphael. I'm happy to be here, and I would also be happy to introduce myself again and my background. Raphael and Ruby, let me know when it's okay for me to share my screen and start, and I would be happy to.
Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Thank you. I just share my screen now. There's a small presentation I made to help us through the CV clinic. I hope my screen is visible.
Yeah. It's fully visible.
Okay. Great. So I can start with my presentation. I would really love for it to be more interactive. So I'm going to try to keep it like the part where I speak as short as possible, so everybody has a chance to ask questions, and I would be more than happy to help as far as I can with answering them. And yeah, let's get started. So hello, I'm going to introduce myself over the next 5 minutes or so. I'm Bhavya. I'm from India, and I completed my bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Delhi. Um, I was always interested in diplomacy, and in India to join the diplomatic forces, which is called the Indian Foreign Services, you have to sit for this common nationwide exam called the Indian Civil Services Examination. And after completing my bachelor's, I gave about 2 years preparing for that exam. That didn't go quite as planned. I figured that I needed a little bit more experience studying and to build my knowledge base. So after preparing for the exam for 2 years, I decided to pursue a master's degree in international relations from Geneva. Um, I've been where you are right now. I've gone through the whole process of applying for master's applications abroad, for applying for internships right after completing my undergraduate degree. And I'm still pursuing my master's degree. I'm in my final semester. I'll be graduating in September, so I can relate to you. And please, feel free and open to ask any questions that you might have, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my capacity as your peer. During my master's degree, so it is a 2 year degree. I completed about 4 internships, and for the past year, I've been working with this organization called the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which is a group of about 50 countries which are most vulnerable to climate change. As part of this, I've actually worked quite closely with Ghana and the Minister of Finance and the Ministry of Finance. So I have some connection, and I'm happy to be speaking to students from Ghana now. Currently, I completed that internship, and right now I'm working in Germany with this German Agency for International Cooperation. And I continue to work with the climate vulnerable countries in Ghana, but as part of a sister organization now. So that's a little bit about me. My interest is in climate policy. My background is in international relations. So a lot of what I'll be sharing will be based on those experiences. I'm not quite sure which fields all of you come from. I would be happy to know, so I can maybe try to tailor my presentation better accordingly. But I'm going to keep it as generic as possible to master's applications and to a generic CV, so it's useful for all of you. And moving on, I have a short poll prepared for all of you. It would be wonderful if you could participate in it. So it's interactive, and so I can also know a little bit about your goal moving forward, and I can accordingly tailor my presentation to it. So you can basically scan the QR code on your screen, or you can go to menti.com and type in the 8-digit code mentioned here. Once you've done this, could maybe a few of you let me know on the chat, and then once you've answered the question, we can see the results on my screen, so we'll know what you said.
Okay, so when you tap on, when you enter the 8-digit codes or you scan the code over here, it takes you to a web page, and then you're allowed to choose either. So the question there is, what are you aiming for? And we have two options: either a master's degree or internships/job applications. So you choose one of them, and then that would be used to help you understand how best you can address your questions. Okay, so please let's do the exercise as soon as possible. I've started mine already. Okay, so there's one. So once we get 2 or 3, we move on because of the time. So we have 2 now. So you choose either master's application. Okay, so we have 3 people. Okay. Okay, so we have 4. The last person, and then we continue with the responses we have. Okay, so for some of you who would like to use the same approach but are not able to do that, you can also type your response in the chat room right here. So we have 5. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's good. So those of you who selected pink, I think, are aiming for a master's degree, and those who selected blue are looking to apply for internships and jobs. So that's good. I'll try to focus a little bit more on the master's degree aspect, but I also have content for those of you who are aiming for internships. And if it's okay, we can move on now.
Yes, it's
Okay, so
okay.
that's 6 now. Yeah. Okay, so what makes a strong CV? Before we get to how you can structure your CV better to master's applications or to internships, we need to know what makes a strong CV and what's most important. And it's 2 very, very simple things. So the first is that you have to keep it as brief as possible. And the second is that you have to make it as legible or as easy to read as possible. So the reason behind that is that most internships and all master's applications have two main aspects. The first is your personal statement, and the second is your resume. Your personal statement is a lengthy letter to the internship of hiring officer or to the director of studies at the degree at the university you're applying for, explaining why you're a good fit for them, why you want to study there, why you want to work there, where your motivation comes from, why your skills match their requirements, and why they should hire you or why they should accept you into their university. So that's more detailed. That's a place for you to be creative. That's a place for you to tell a story, to accurately reflect yourself and your persona. But what a CV does is the exact opposite. Almost every recruiter and every educational director who's looking at your applications gives about maximum a minute to reading through your CV. So it has to be short, maybe not more than one page if possible. Especially at an undergraduate degree, it's possible to limit your CV to one page. So just that, so they can quickly scan through it, get out the important points, which are more logistical, where you've done your degree, what you specialize in, organizations you worked at, and so on. So to create a well-balanced, structured, more attractive CV, it has to be brief, which is brevity, and it has to be legible, which is easy to read. And as an example of that, so we have two CVs here. The first one is quite dense. There's a lot of information in it. It's in a similar format, font, and writing style. And the CV on the second CV, which is mine, you can see my name on top of it. Based on how I was instructed and what I was told, it's more spaced out. It's less dense. There's information in it, but that information is arranged in a manner that it's easy to read. You can see what the sections are about. On the left, you can see the duration, the dates. On the right, there's only information that they absolutely need to know. So they need to know the name of my degree, they need to know where, which institute I was studying at, the country, grade, so on, and the same for my work experience. For something like the first example here, the recruiter would have to definitely spend more than a minute trying to pick out points which are important and reading through it. So your job when you're structuring your CV is to make it as easy to read as possible for the recruiter. So they take one glance in it and they know exactly what they need to know. So that's the most important thing to keep in mind here. And they're very simple tools to do this. You try to put what is most important in bold. You use italics, you use underlines, and you try to highlight in different colors information that needs to stand out in different sections. And this is very easy to do. Also use bullet points, keep it as short as possible. So that's the extreme basics of how you keep your CV easy to read. And now I'll try to help with tips on how you structure your CV in terms of what is most important, the hierarchy of things that a recruiter is looking for, and what best fits your needs at an undergraduate level. So the first thing here, I've also only taken my CV as an example. I've built the CV with help from workshops at my master's degree, with all the feedback that I've gotten for the internships I got and the internships I applied for but was rejected. I've compiled information based on what I think has worked best for me. So the first section, which is the portion highlighted here on top, is your profile. You need to keep it short. There's only a few pieces of information that need to be there. The most important is your name, of course. Next is next are your contact details. Your email and your phone number has to be on top of it because that's how a recruiter is most likely going to contact you. Your date of birth, because that's the general norm of keeping it there. And I also have a picture, but at an undergraduate level, a picture is not mostly needed. If you're looking for internships and you're aiming to apply in international organizations, because that's my background, they mostly do expect a picture. If you're applying for a master's degree, I would advise not having a picture because some universities abroad have this clause where they don't want to put a face to the profile because of any biases that might come from it. So when applying for a master's degree, I would not advise having a picture, but for internships, yes, that's something to keep in mind. The second section here is about me, but that I'm going to come to in the end, and I'll explain why I skipped it here. So the most important thing in your CV at an undergraduate level is your educational experience, because that's your highest achievement so far, especially if you're applying for a master's degree. That's the first information they need to have to know what your background is and why you're a fit for that particular specialization or master's. When you're adding information here, you need to keep it brief. The few important things that absolutely need to be here are the exact name of your degree, your institute, the duration, like the years, because they will want to know when you graduate, the country you completed your undergraduate degree in, your grade. And because you're an undergraduate level and you'll most likely be applying for a master's, which is a specialization in a particular subject. Like I did my bachelor's in political science, and then I wanted to specialize in international relations and further in climate policy. It made sense at an undergraduate level for me to add any courses I had which were relevant to that degree. I've not done that here because I had more information that this CV is at a master's level. But when you're doing when you're applying for a master's degree, you can have a few lines about the courses that are important. Let's say if you've done your bachelor's in economics and you want to apply for a master's degree in international trade and development, I would suggest adding a few lines about any related courses that you may have taken, like let's say trade and development economics, macroeconomics, microeconomics, and so on. So it makes sense to have those here. And of course, your grades are quite important at this stage. So that's about your education and training. This should be the first section on top. And then there's your work experience. So when I was applying for a master's degree, when I just completed my undergraduate degree, there's a lot of pressure which may or may not be valid about having internships and work ex, but you need to understand, and also it's something which can help take the load off you, that it's not always possible to have work ex with an undergraduate degree. If you have some time before you apply for your master's degree and you had an interim period in between, then internships and work is usually expected, but it's okay to also not have it. That said, undergraduate is also a period when you're exploring and you don't exactly know which field you want to work on. I didn't know I wanted to work in climate policy when I was doing my bachelor's degree. So the internships I had then were actually quite different. I interned with a newspaper, so that was in journalism. I had interned with a member of parliament in the Indian government, so that was public policy, and neither of them were related to climate policy. So the way around it is that you mention your internship experience, but the details here, as you can see in the first section, intern global chief secretariat, and then there are bullet points which say supportive communication and so on. What you can do in those bullet points is tailor the sentence in a way which highlights skills that are transversal. So if you say that you helped with research writing and in the publication of 2 reports, that's a transversal skill because research can be used in any field. If you say that you were helping with communication and social media, that's a transversal skill. So instead of focusing on something which is field specific, you can highlight a skill which is useful across specializations. And that's a good way to go about it. That's it if you don't have work experience, and there's also a way to tailor your CV accordingly, which I'll come to. Most important things when you mention your work experience is the organization you work with, that should be on top, then your position, the skills you learned, as I mentioned, and the main tasks you completed. But when you structure these sentences about the main tasks, they should always start with an action word. So you supported with this, you researched on this, you prepared reports on this, and so on. And moving on, there's another section. Okay, so at an undergraduate level, it's quite important to have any management and leadership positions or skills that you have on your CV. One reason is that you might not have work ex and internships, and this is a good way to, this is a good alternative to fill up your CV and to highlight what your skills are and why you're a good fit for them and how you can be in positions of responsibility and leadership, which masters applications usually really emphasize on. And that said, in this section, you can also include any management or leadership positions you had in your high school, because when you're applying for a master's degree, your undergraduate degree is important, but bits and pieces of your high school still continue to be relevant. When you've completed your master's degree and then you start applying for jobs, it's usually not recommended to have anything about your high school on or needed. But when you're applying for a master's degree, it's still okay to have those. So you can keep that in mind and add those portions. Again, here, emphasize in action words, which team you led, which tasks you supported, which tasks you guided or structured, and so on. And this should be right after your education section. It's a little, this should be right after your work experience section if you have work experience, or right after your education if you don't. It's on the bottom for mine because it is more tailored to job applications, but that's something you can focus on. And moving on, if you have space left, okay, again, like I would really like to emphasize that at this stage, limit your CVs or resumes to 1 page if you can, and try not to go beyond it, because they have to scan through it as fast as possible. They're going to read your motivation letter for more detailed information about you and your experiences. And that's mostly also what they spend more time on. But if you have space, then you can mention your IT skills. So I had some experience in graphic design. So I have Photoshop, InDesign, Canva, and so on this. If you're applying for a communications master's, then this is important to have. Like I would suggest definitely keeping digital skills on if it's something very technical. If you're applying for a degree abroad, like I'm from India, but I was applying for a degree in Switzerland, and in Geneva, the local language is French. So in that case, I had to mention on my CV what my language skills are, because sometimes it's mandatory to know that language if you're applying there. So if that's the case, then I would suggest having a language section. Otherwise, it's not that important here. And yes, so that's a structure for a CV, which absolutely has to be on it. But there's some things which can be add-ons and get you bonus points. So the first one here is, like, as I mentioned, there was the About Me section at the top of my CV. Now, this is absolutely not mandatory, especially at an undergraduate level. But if you have space and you need to cover it up and you're willing to tailor your CV to each application, then this is something that can be a plus point. What the About Me section does is it gives the recruiter or the education director approving the master's applications a better idea of what your motivation, your area of focus is, and why you're a good fit for them. So as you can see, the About Me section here is based on me. It says that my highest qualification is a master's degree. My interest is in climate technologies. That's what my thesis was on. I'm passionate about working in this sector, and that's what motivates me. So this is an add-on. It's not necessary, but it can get you bonus points. But you have to tailor this to each application. And the next section is publications. At an undergraduate level, publications are not mandatory. But if there are any research papers you've published, then it's definitely a good idea to add those, because they really get you plus points. And yes, that's about how you can structure your CV. I would be more than happy to answer any questions you have, or if you think I missed out on something. But okay, so a master's application is not just limited to a resume. It's a complex world. It can be really stressful. It was super stressful for me. Applications are long, personal statements are difficult to write, so it can be sort of like a maze, and I can help you a little bit with how we can navigate through it better. So these are the 4 parts which are most important when applying for a master's. We've spoken about the CV and resume. That's the puzzle piece that's taken out. There are 3 more portions which are equally important. First is your application form. That's more logistical. It's long, lengthy, it requires patience, but that's something we have to sit through. Then there's your personal statement and your scholarships. Now, these 2 are extremely important, but these 2 are these like scholarship applications and personal statement can also be really difficult and stressful to write, because we don't know what's most expected, and it's about pitching yourself as an ideal candidate. So I can give maybe a small piece of advice about what can make you stand out in terms of your personal statement and your scholarships, and that's stories. It always helps to weave a tale out of your life experiences. It can be a tale out of your entire life, or it can be a tale out of one specific life experience that has pushed you towards this decision, towards applying for this particular internship in this particular field, for applying for this particular master's degree at this university, and so on. And how you can do it is, the first thing is to start documenting stories. A personal statement is not written overnight. It's a stressful process. It's long and lengthy. I've made mistakes while writing personal statements where, I waited till the last moment and then I had to brainstorm about what to do. It always helps to be prepared. And since you're already starting to plan now for your master's applications, I would suggest that every experience you now have, every task you do, if you already have a target school or a target organization, start learning about them, about their work, and start trying to find stories from your life which you can pitch to them or fit into your application. So that's something you can already start now. Dry run these stories with your friends and colleagues. Your friends and colleagues understand you. They know your background. They also probably know your motivations. And they can be a good audience to sort of test how these stories sound like and whether they sound compelling, whether it's true to who you are, and so on. I can also maybe help with a sort of framework for these stories or your personal statement and scholarships. So the first thing is, again, as I said, you can structure your entire life experience into a tale. I can give an example of this. So one of my friends, when we were applying for a master's degree, we were just out of our undergraduation. She belongs to a landowner's family. Landowners and farmers, and she was the first generation in her family to pursue a master's degree. She's coming from that background. She wanted to work in digital policy, and it's quite a far fetch from coming from landowners to moving till there. So she was also engaged in a lot of college politics at the undergraduate level. So she picked this sort of trajectory of her life to emphasize on how her family background, how her academic experience, and how her wish to work in international policy pushed her towards this particular school. So that's how you can weave a tale from your life experience in general. The other way is to pick one particular experience from your life which has motivated you towards this particular subject or towards this university. I can give an example from my applications. As I mentioned, I was preparing for the Indian Civil Services. I couldn't clear the examination. I still wanted to work in diplomacy and work in international relations. So if I couldn't get through the national bureaucracy, the other way for me was to specialize in international relations, specialize in a particular field, and then move on and work in international diplomacy. So I sort of used a setback as a motivation to pursue a master's degree in a particular school. So the school I study at is located in Geneva, which is the headquarters for United Nations and a lot of other international bodies. So it was an ideal place to be at and the ideal place for me to choose a career in international diplomacy. So I used an experience as a motivation to get to that goal. The next part is that you have to find out where this story fits in their field of work. So when you've spoken about your story, you then have to create a paragraph to link about what is good about that university, why that particular field of study. If there are any professors that you are particularly interested in who have motivated you, this is also a good section to add, mention their names and add why they've motivated you, and why the university is important to you, or why it's most important for you to be studying there. And in the last section, you have to talk about work that you've done or experience that you have in that field. So you've spoken about a story about why them, and then why you. So that's a good structure to have for when you're weaving a tale. And yeah, that's the end of my presentation. In case I missed anything out, or if you have any specific questions about the presentation, about structuring your CV, about international relations, because that's where I can maybe be more specific in guidance, I would be more than happy to answer. And I'll hand over to Rafael and Ruby now.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was a very great and impactful session. I also took a few notes, and thank you so much. I already have a brief of this session because we met yesterday. So let me say I'm more lucky than everyone here. So we're going to have a moderator moderate the question and answer session, but I'll do that simultaneously with her. So it's time for questions and answers. It's going to be in this pattern. If you do have a question, you can put the questions in the chat room, or you can raise your hand and you'll be allowed to speak. So the questions should be centering about around the purpose of this discussion today. Should either be under the academic CV making. If you want to know a few more questions you have in mind, just to clear some doubts, then like the number of pages it should be, or a few more things you need to know. Maybe there are some things you don't yet know you should include in your academic CV, for which you've been told here, and a few things perhaps you know already and you want to clear your doubts if that is right to be done. So this is the chance, and today is today. So kindly raise your hand if you have a question, or you type your questions in the chat room. Thank you. So I'll be doing the moderation for the questions and answers with Ruby. Thank you. Okay, so let me just kickstart it. Let me just kickstart the process before this send this. So whilst you were presenting, I saw a number of publications you had done, and you added that to your CV. So my question is, how did you go about all these publications? Were they difficult to get done? Because I saw about 7 publications, if I'm not.
Uh, just to clarify, that wasn't from my CV, that was from my sister's CV because she is more focused on research. She's doing a master's in economics. How you go about publications is usually how it works, at least where I was studying, was that they usually had 1 or 2 mandatory research papers that we had to write as part of our degree or your thesis. Then you can approach your professor, like if you have a thesis supervisor, then your thesis supervisor, and talk to them about which is a good journal to get it published in, if it's good quality and quality enough to publish it, and so on. That's one way to go about it. The second way is that if you're doing an internship in a research firm or a think tank, then usually they have avenues to publish your research papers. Like in the section that I provided, my sister was working with a research organization, and they used to work on minerals and mining. And they had their own website where a lot of research articles and papers were published, and that's where it went up. So you can go through the academic channel. Your professors are most ideal here to guide you because they also regularly have their own publications, and then they can help you guide through the process. Also, they would first, advise you on the quality of your research writing and how you need to edit it to tailor it to make to an online publication. And the second way is through internships.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. So whilst we're doing the polls, a majority of us were much more concerned about master's application. This is your chance to ask your questions. We have some few minutes before we end. So let the questions start flowing. Who will be the first person? You can either raise your hand and you'll be allowed to ask your questions, or you can type them to the chat room. So we have Ashika, we have Ezekiel, we have Delight, we have Daniel, we have Sewa, Mami Sewa, we have Abdul Hakim, we also have Ismaila, Joseph, Liberty, Mahama, Martin Luther, Mohammed Yunus, Nana Safo, Portia. Oh, you're welcome, Mrs. Portia. Thank you so much for making it. Okay, so we also have Persa, we have Salifu Stephen, and we have Wisdom Duvo. Any questions? Okay, so we have a question. We have 2 questions from Comfort. Please, you can type them in the chat room, or maybe you may want to speak them out. Just let me know by raising your hand, and you'll be allowed to speak. And so let me just go with the first two questions we have in the chat room whilst we wait for the questions from Comfort. So Ashika is saying that when is the most suitable period to start applying for a master's? Okay, so can you do me this favor? Ashika, I would like you to add to the chat room the name of your university or the name of your campus, so we make reference to your campus to understand the campus diversities we have here at Tarragon Students Network. Okay, so when is the most suitable? So you can do same as well for Liberty and then Abdul Hakim. Okay, so if you're a graduate, also just let us know where you graduated from. Thank you. So for Mashika, the first question, when is the most suitable period to start applying for a master's? A master's, should it be right after your first degree or a couple of years, maybe after your first degree, like 2 or 3 years, maybe like 2 years or a year after it? So that's for Mashika. Thank you.
Mm. Ashika, can you actually tell me which subject you're doing your undergraduate in, and then maybe I can make it more specific because it could vary depending on what you want to do your master's degree in. And then I can tailor it to your answer.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. You're an economics major. Okay, so the thing is that if you want to do an MBA, like, okay, a lot of people opt for an MBA after doing an economics degree, then it's ideal that you get a little bit of work ex. So I would suggest about at least 2 years, and then you apply for an MBA degree. But if you want to do master's degree in economics or specialize in something like, say, trade economics, international economics, environmental economics, and so on, then I would suggest doing it immediately after, because particularly in the field of economics, when you're applying for jobs, they do expect a specialization. So if you're aiming to do a master's degree immediately after your bachelor's degree, I would suggest that you start applying from the beginning of your third year. So if your third year starts in 2024, start looking at applications in 2024 itself. If you want to get into early admissions, then you have to start your applications by July or by August max. Applications go on through the whole year for some universities abroad, at least, so you can continue applications till, let's say, December or January. But the ideal thing is to start your master's degree immediately after you've completed your bachelor's. If you are not quite sure which subject you or which specialization you want to do your master's in, then I would suggest take about a year off, do internships, apply for jobs, so you can understand where your interest lies. The best way to understand where your interest lies is to start working in the field, and then you can sort of cross it off the checklist that, okay, this is not something I like, but this is something I'm working in. And that way, work ex can be good for a master's degree. But if you already have an idea, I would suggest applying right away in your third year.
Okay. So Ashika says she wants to specialize in petroleum economics. And
great, you already know it. Then I would suggest, if you're in your third year, start applying already.
okay. Thank you so much. I believe you're clear with that, Ashika. For any further questions, you can also send that to the chat room. Thank you. So let's take the next question for the sake of time. So our next question here. Okay, so by the way, Ashika is from MUST. Let me say Amistad University in Ghana. And so the next question is from a graduate from the University of Ghana, also studied economics, and is by name Liberty Achu. So Liberty is saying that, please, can you throw some light on what the personal statement must contain?
Sure. Okay, this is a tricky question and the most tricky part about applications. What should a personal statement contain? Again, I'm not sure if I'm the best authority to give you advice on this, but I can talk about my experience and about my peers, my colleagues, my friends who applied for masters and got great universities and great courses. So the thing is that your personal statement must have a story about you, pitching yourself as a candidate, about why you're perfect for the university and why the university is perfect for you. So ideally, it should start with where your motivation comes from, what your background is, and why you want to study in that particular field. Then it should go on to why that particular university. So it could be you have some personal association with the university. You have there are particular professors that you want to work with. This university is particularly known for this specialization. Like as Ashka mentioned, she wants to specialize in petroleum economics, which is a rare field. So I'm sure there are very few universities which actually have great professors on that. So if she applies to those universities in particular, she has a great pitch because she has a very focused field to study in. And after that, in the final section, you have to pitch yourself as a candidate. So it's your skills, your work experience, the courses you've done, which explain why you were a great fit for the university. Now, the other way to go about it is before you start your personal statement, take a very good look at the university's website. They usually have a vision and a mission statement which specifies what their values are. A good thing to emphasize on is how your values match theirs, because that's something they really stress upon. Let's say one university has a great value for leaders, then emphasizing on your leadership skills becomes that much more important here. One university could emphasize on community service, so then community service becomes important there. So you have to keep interacting with the university website and do your background research before you get to your personal statement. But this is the three most important things: a story, why the university, and why you.
Okay, thank you so much. So I believe that is clear with you. Okay. So in case you have any further maybe doubts, just let us know, Mr. Liberty, in the chat room, and she'll also make that clear to you as well. Thank you so much for making this point and clear. Okay, so we have him right. Okay, so he says it's clear by an emoji. Thank you, Mr. Liberty. So let's move on to our next question. Our next question is from Abdul Hakim, and Abdul Hakim is a student here at the University of Ghana, and he's saying that, please, what is the best way to go about my master's application? Quite broad, but I'm sure you may have a concise answer for him. Thank you.
Best way to go about your master's application. That's interesting. The first thing is to shortlist your dream schools. It's not always possible to apply to multiple places, but that's a good way to go about it because your chances of getting an increase. But it's also important, very important, to focus on 2 or 3 universities which are your dream schools, and you put in more effort there. The next thing is to once you have a university and you have a subject like a field to study, is get onto your personal statement. It's going to take a while. Sometimes it can take up to a month for you to be satisfied with your personal statement. So start putting in effort there. As I mentioned, start looking for stories in your life and start documenting them, start running them by people. Application forms take time. Do not leave the application form to be filled in the last minute. You will miss the deadline. It's a hassle. So again, I would suggest taking about a month or two to solidly prepare for your for the whole process. Same thing for scholarship applications. They also need a story, or they run very similar to your personal statements. So give a lot of time to them. And finally, run your personal statement by as many people as you can. Reach networking is important here. Reach out to students already studying in that university. Most of them are more than happy to help. You can reach out to me. Once I get to the last slide, my it has my email ID and my LinkedIn. Run it by people who can verify your personal statement, who can give you advice on it, especially people who are already studying at the university. They know what the university is looking for. So yeah, these are some things that you need to keep in mind. That was a broad question.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was detailed. The answer was detailed, broad but concise and detailed. Thank you. So let's take the next question. I think the questions are becoming too many, but thank you for your time.
You're more than happy to answer.
Okay, so the next question is from Jasmine. Jasmine, kindly add the university you're coming from to the chat box as well. So Jasmine is saying that what is the minimum GPA needed for a master's application? So I know personally that different schools give their prescriptions, or I mean they give what the term as their specifics. But can you let us know more beyond because I think for now you are the one with the higher rank here. Thank you.
No, Rafael, you're absolutely right. All universities have different standards. When you go to the university's application page for that particular course, under every course, there's an requirement section that you have to meet, and they usually have the minimum GPA you need to have. It really varies. Every university and every course in every university has a different requirement. So the best way to go is visit the website and check it there. If you're applying for universities in the US, sometimes you have to give your GMAT, or if you're applying for an MBA, then CAT sometimes. So that has, again, different universities have different requirements, and it's usually mentioned on the website. If it's not mentioned on the website, do a quick Google search and you'll definitely get it.
Okay, thank you so much. So I believe that is okay with you, Jasmine. For any further questions, just let us know right in the chat room. Brief questions. So the next question is from Comfort Gospel from Nigeria. She's joining us from Nigeria. She's a graduate from Akwa Ibom University in Nigeria. So a question is, I was being told it's appropriate to include date of birth in our CV, but you highlighted it as one of the things that is to be included. Just a minute. Okay.
Mhm.
So please, I need to know, sorry, please, what I need to know is it just for international applications, or it really, or is it really appropriate to include it in our CVs irrespective of the location? So she wants to know if it's appropriate to include your date of birth in your CV, whether you're applying for um, something international or locally.
Okay. So the thing is, for a master's application, it's not as important. Again, the reason, why I mentioned that it's maybe also not needed to have your picture or your date of birth is because they don't want to create any biases from any personal information that may be presented. So you cannot include your date of birth, but when you're applying for applications, always important to include your date of birth because sometimes they have age requirements. So there it's important. For a master's degree, it's okay even if you don't have it. For job applications, always have it. Job applications, internships. World Bank has these JPOs, like junior professional offers, or specific internships for the youth, where there's a qualification in terms of you have to be, let's say, between 18 to 25 years to apply. So that's why it's important to have your date of birth. Otherwise, for master's degree, it's okay. It does make a difference.
Okay, thank you so much. So she has a second question. Okay, but she says a second question has been answered by you when you answered Ashika's question. Okay, thank
Okay.
you so much. Comfort, kindly let us know if you're okay with the response given in the chat room. So let's take the next question from Imran. I believe that the questions being asked here are actually able to clear the doubts of most of us here, and we can who have similar questions but are not able to ask them, or may have those questions come up in times to come. So today they're being answered ahead of time. So let's all pay attention. And if you have any further questions, please do well. Our speaker is generously giving us a few more minutes to be with us. So don't miss this opportunity. I'll be handing over to Ruby soon to take over with the questions and answers. So I'll take the last question and then Ruby takes on from the next one as my co-moderator. So the last question I'm going to be voicing out is from Imran. And then Imran is saying that, do we have minimum grades for master's application? I think you've answered something related to this. But
Minimum grades, right?
yes, please.
Oh yeah, it's the same as I think Jasmine asked that question about having a minimum GPA. It's okay. You would also have to help me out here. Every country has a different GPA system. Like I was from India, and we are graded on a 10-point scale. So that's why the requirements are different, and you have to go and read up the requirements on the university's website, and then usually there are like these open websites where you can convert your GPA to the grade scale that they have the requirements mentioned in. So the best way to go about it is just visit the website.
Yep, exactly. Thank you so much. So I've spoken a brief, I've spoken for a while briefly. So I'm going to hand over to my co-moderator. Thank you, Ruby. Please, you can take over from here.
All right, thank you so much, Raphael. Thank you so much, Miss Bhhavya. So this is coming from Ezekiel, he says, do I always need a life experience that is supposed to align with the school's interest, for which I'm writing the statement to? What if I want to explore new fields that I basically have little experience with regards to your last slide? Did you get that, Miss
Um,
Behavior?
Thank you, Ruby. So Ezekiel, you okay, what you need to have is a story. You don't, it's not possible to have a life experience that always aligns with what you want to work in. By life experience, I meant something that triggered your interest in a field. So even if it's a new field, what was that one point in your life that pushed you towards exploring that new field? That's what you need to focus on and mention. Um, you could have little experience in it, and that's what I meant, when I said that there's a lot of pressure to have internships and work ex at an undergraduate level. It's not always possible to have it. As I mentioned, I had no experience in climate policy. My experience was in journalism. I just used the skills that I got from there to push forth sort of motivation for exploring this new field. That's you need to know how to frame this interest in a field that captivates them, but it doesn't always mean that you have to have experience there. It's always okay to explore new fields. It's just about how you um, pitch that interest, which makes a difference.
All right, Ezekiel, hope you are okay now. Please let us know if you are okay with the detailed explanation. Okay, so the next question is coming from Ashika. She's saying, as an economics student, should I base my research for a university based on the country like countries which have strong petroleum holds, or my search should be based on which university that specializes in my field? Yeah. So, Miss Behavia,
Mm,
that's the question to
yeah.
you.
So the good thing is that we live in a globalized world. You can always apply for jobs anywhere in the world. We're relatively open. Petroleum economics, also a lot like my field, which is international relations and climate diplomacy. There are now jobs which are global, which have global importance. So it's I don't think you would need to focus on countries which have a strong petroleum hold. You need to focus on universities that specialize in it, because what's going to give you a good knowledge base is this one professor which has years of experience in petroleum economics, and that's going to be more important at a master's degree, because the point of a master's degree is that you're strengthening your knowledge foundation, and that's going to come from someone who's a subject specialist, not necessarily a country which has a stronghold there. So go for the university and go for a professor.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Ashika, also, please, is this okay for you? Is the explanation okay for you, Ashika? Let us know. And she also has a follow-up question. So she says, I'm wondering the value of research and publications in my CV as as an economics student who wants to specialize in petroleum economics. Please, did you get that, Miss
Yeah,
Behavior?
I did. Thank you. Okay, again, at an undergraduate level, really no pressure to have publications. Um, if you've taken any courses which are related to petroleum economics, have that on your CV. That's important, because you know where you want to, you know which field you want to have a specialized degree in, which is great. If you have courses that you can show there, that's going to be more important. If you have a way, like if you still have time, and you can talk to your professors about how to get a potential paper published in that field, it's always a good way to go about it. That's also going to make you stand out, but it's not mandatory, so don't take pressure about it. But if it's something you can do, then that's a bonus.
All right, thank you so much, Miss Behavior. Ashika, please hope you are kindly send it or text it via the chat room. Or better still, you can also reach out to Raphael or me, yeah, so that we can attend to you later. For now, we have to wrap up Yeah. So so let's wait for 1 more minute. If there's no further question, then we can let we can wrap up. Yeah.
So I think we have a question from Bawa Abraham. So by the way, Ezekiel is joining us from KNUST. He studies materials engineering. And thank you so much, Bhavya. Your impact is taking us this let me say being generated to someone over there in the engineering space, and it's going to make use of this, though it's not doing international relations. Thank you. The next person we have here is Bawa Abraham to continue with from where my co-moderator ended. So he's saying that plus does it always matter that the project work you did in your undergraduate should always align with your MPhil or PhD program that you were applying for in a scholarship application? Should I go
Hmm.
over this one?
Yeah, so the thing is, for MPhil and PhD applications, you can only apply for those after you have a master's degree. So there it's important that you have your specialization in the existing field. Usually, an MPhil also needs a master's degree before. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. For PhD programs, of course, you need a master's degree. The master's degree has to be in the field you're doing your PhD in for sure. But when you're applying for a master's, like a master in arts, master's in science, or so on, it's not necessary that your undergraduate degree is always in the same field. Like I have friends who are now doing a master's in environmental and sustainability policy, and they did their bachelor's in commerce, and it didn't make a difference. You just have to show interest at that level. But at an MPhil or PhD level, you need to have a degree in the same specialization.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so before we round the session up, I believe any further questions could also be shared with us on our page. We would find the feasible means to channel your questions to Bhavya at this period. She has answered a lot of questions, and we are highly grateful. Thank you so much. And she's saying to us all the best. And we have the a email address and then also a LinkedIn profile. You can follow Bhavya on LinkedIn, where I also got in touch with her, and she helped me understand very detailed things I need to know about the Graduate Institute Geneva in Switzerland. And then email is also available, something I didn't get on the first start, but you have it now. So please, this is priceless. Take advantage of it. And please reach out if you have any further questions. But before we round the question, okay, so Bawa is saying thank you very much for the response. Thank you. So before we round the session up, we are privileged to have with us, I think we have with us two dignitaries. Our mentor is here, Dr. Genevieve Pearl Duncan Obubi. But I texted her and she was like, I think she had a few issues with the network, though she tried to join us. And it's a surprise because um, even though she had a tight schedule, she has 2 minutes possible to join us today. We're so grateful she's here, and we would give her the chance to speak to every one of us, to share a few words, some comments before we end the session. And we'll also be hearing from another dignitary we have here with us, and she's by name Mrs. Portia. Uh, just a minute. So she's by name Mrs. Portia Napaba. So we're highly privileged to have these professionals here with us today. So just before we move on to Mrs. Portia, would like to hear a word from our chief mentor today, Dr. Genevieve, if it's possible. Thank you. Okay. Um, okay, I think the network issues still persist. But okay, let's move on to Mrs. Portia. we may come back again. Okay. So Mrs. Portia is the Learning and Development Manager at Olam Agri Ghana Limited, and we are highly privileged to have her with us today. Mrs. Portia, please can you share a brief comment with us today as we come to an end of today's session before we take the last words from Bhhavya Kapoor? Thank you. And thank you for joining.
All right, Ralph, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody on the call. It's a privilege for me to also have the opportunity to learn on this session. So what I would just like to briefly share with those on the call is to, first and foremost, acknowledge the organizers of the event for putting up such an event to educate us all on CV writing. And for me as an HR professional, I see the importance of this. And I always say that there are some things that we don't get the opportunity to learn mostly in the classrooms. It's through some of these forums that we get the opportunity to learn, but they are very crucial and very critical in life. And I think the CV is one of those things. So the CV speaks for you in your absence. And so it's very important that you put in the appropriate words and the appropriate information. For me as an HR practitioner, one experience I've had some time ago was when I was going through CVs, reviewing CVs, and I saw one CV that caught my attention. But unfortunately, this gentleman did not put his phone number there. And I was so amazed. I was like, how could this happen? And he was one of the target people we were actually looking for. It only takes the grace of God for you to meet people who would have enough time to go through, maybe try to trace you through emails and all that. But I think that there are some basics that if we are able to grasp right from the word go, it makes our life easier. And so this is a great opportunity for us all. And so well done to the organizers of this event. And I hope that we've all learned much. Let's keep on updating ourselves, updating our CVs, and then putting in the right recommendations so that in our absence, it will speak perfectly well for us. Thank you, Ralph, and thank you, everybody, for giving me this opportunity.
You're highly welcome, Mrs. Portia. And we are highly privileged to have you with us. So today we are highly privileged because she's an HR and she has shared her views with us on something very important we need to know, which also our speaker for today highlighted during the presentation. So I believe that majority of the questions we have been answered. And I would like to ask if my co-moderator has any question or has any final words to share before we hand over to our speaker for today. Okay. Okay. So if you're still with us and you are actively with us, I'd like you to put in the chat room, thank you, Bhhavya. We want to say thank you to her. So I'm going to start myself just to say thank you. So put in the chat room for everyone and just say thank you, Bhhavya. So I've done mine. We want to say thank you to her. We want to appreciate her. Thank you so much, Mrs. Portia, for joining. We are highly grateful you did. It's a privilege. Okay, so let's keep our thank you coming in. So we have it done by Priscilla, by Imran. I've also done mine as well. And we also have a nice comment from Mrs. Portia. We have it done by Bawa, Abraham. Let's keep it coming through for the next 30 seconds. And we are done with this. Okay, thank you, Ezekiel. You've done that. So Ezekiel says, thank you, Bhhavya. Sweet. He's highly grateful. Thank you. Okay. So from Larry Joyce, from Ruby, my co-moderator, from Joseph, from Liberty, thank you, thank you, thank you. So on behalf, okay, from Comfort, from Wisdom, and from the house, we want to say a big thank you to you. So on behalf of my co-moderator for today, I want to say thank you so much for making it to be with us. And then also on behalf of our chief mentor and our number one leader, Dr. Genevieve Duncan Bobi, I want to say a big thank you. And I look forward to the personal meeting with you and her. Thank you so much. And we would like you to have your last words with us before we close the session with a prayer.
Thank you so much, Rafael, and a big thank you to you, Ruby, and to Genevieve for giving me this opportunity. I was more than happy to help in any capacity I can. I'm also a student. And people help me with my applications and have helped me moving forward. So it's just a way to keep the chain going and pay the gratitude forward. So thank you so much, and it was a pleasure being here.
Okay, you're highly welcome. So God has been so good, and today's session has been great. We're going to end the session with a word of prayer, and I'll call upon two people. Either of them can unmute and pray with us. So we have Liberty at you, and then also my co-moderator Ruby. Any of you can unmute and pray with us as we close the session. Thank you.
Okay. Please, we are praying. Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, we thank you so much for a successful workshop. We pray that whatever we have learned through Miss Bhhavya, we will be able to put them in practice, and you give us a sense of direction, a sense of focus, so that our life will be as expected as you want our life to be. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray thanksgiving. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so officially, I would like to say thank you to everyone for making it as we say goodbye at this time. But before that, please take note. We'll have the second session of the CV clinic on the 27th of this month. And on that session, we're going to be hosting Mr. Dixon Hassan, also a specialist in CV crafting. And he's going to take us through the professional dimension of presenting your CV for a job. So today, we add most of our focus on academics. So for master's application, and then a little bit of internship, and then also for international jobs aspect. But on 27th, we're going to delve deeper into how to craft your CV to apply for jobs, especially in Ghana or in your African country, like in Nigeria there. Thank you so much. And then see you on the 27th. Further information will be shared on the page, including the contact details for our speaker today, Bhhavya Couple. So you can send her an email and also connect with him on LinkedIn, and it will be a highly invaluable network. Thank you. Do have a good night, everyone. Goodbye.